Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Real Talk with LoukProp. And after our last video talking about the timeline and processes for buying a HDB resale flat in Singapore, I'll link it down in the description below. Many of you have been asking me to do one for sellers. Alright, for sellers timeline, it's pretty similar to the buying timeline, just with some very critical differences that you have to know. So today, we will be doing the timeline and processes for selling a HDB resale flat in Singapore. Let's go. But before we start, let's bring up the timeline first. Okay. Now before we begin, we're working with a few assumptions here. Number one, that you have already met your 5 years MOP on your HDB flat. And number two, that you have already done your financial calculations, right? After deducting for your outstanding loan, deducting for the CPF use plus accrued interest, whether you have any cash proceeds left. Now with that out of the way, let's begin. Now let's talk about before an option to purchase is being issued out. There are a few things that you need to do. Now before you even market, you have to decide on your marketing strategy first. So find a professional that can help you to do up a marketing proposal, right? What are the platforms you'll be listing it on? What's your social media strategy? Are you putting it on Facebook, YouTube? Are you doing a home tour video? Are you doing home staging? So all this needs to be settled before you even start marketing your unit. Now, next thing you have to do is to do your intent to sell. This is very important because the OTP can only be issued after 7 days of doing the intent to sell. So do it earlier so that you won't, fumble around when you actually find a buyer and you have to issue out the OTP. So after marketing the unit, you'll be now doing viewings and negotiations when you find your buyers, right? So it is at this point that you decide what's the price that you want to sell at, what is the conditions of sales that you need, right? Do you need to do defects rectification? Is there temporary extension of stay that you need after the completion of the HDB? All this must be settled during the negotiation stages. Now, after you have negotiated successfully, you have found your buyer, you will now issue the OTP. At this point, the buyer will have to pay you an option fee of between $1,000 to $1,000, not exceeding $1,000 to secure the option to purchase, right? Please make sure that your buyer has already done their home loan eligibility checks, all right? Or their in-principle approval has already been done. Also make sure that your buyer has already done their intent to buy before the OTP is being issued to your buyer. So after the OTP is being issued, the buyers will now do a valuation request and they will pay that $120 to make that request. Usually within 4 days, if a valuation on-site is needed, the valuer will give you a call to arrange an on-site visit and they will do their own valuation first. And after that visit, roughly about 5 to 7 days later, the valuation report will then be out. Sellers won't have access to the valuation report because the report is paid by the buyers. But if you want to, you can actually check with the buyers to see if they are willing to tell you the valuation price. So once the valuation report is out and the buyers decide that they want to exercise the OTP and also go ahead with the purchase, they have to do it within 21 days of the option date. It is at this point that they will pay you the exercise fee. Now the exercise fee is as such. The option fee and the exercise fee cannot be more than $5,000. So let's say, for example, they have paid you $1,000 as option fee. They cannot pay you more than $4,000 for the exercise fee. Now, after the exercise, the next step will be to do the resale application. Both buyers and sellers must do this resale application within a mutually agreed submission date. Usually, as a standard, what we will put on the OTP is within 30 days from the exercise date. But if you really want to do it on the exercise date itself, you are able to do that as well. Now, do take note that if one party has already submitted the resale application, the second party will have to submit their end of the resale application within 7 calendar days. If not, the application will lapse. After the resale application, it will take about 2 to 4 weeks for HDB to send you an email or an SMS to inform you that they have accepted your resale application. From that email or SMS, it will take about 3 weeks timeline for your documents to be ready to be endorsed on the resale portal. It is also at this time that you have to pay things like your admin fees and your conveyancing fees if you are engaging HDB for your conveyancing. Now the last step will be the completion appointment on the completion date, which will usually be 8 weeks from the date that they've accepted your resale application. Now, usually before the completion date, about 2 to 3 days prior, you have to do the flat inspection between the buyers and the seller. So that's the time when the buyers will be looking through the entire house to make sure it's with vacant possession, that everything has been cleared out and there's no defects or rectification. If there are any defects that needs to be rectified, it has to be done before the completion date itself. So on the completion date itself, you have to head down to HDB Hub to do the completion with the buyers. Now, there are a few things that you have to bring on the completion date. Number one is the original option to purchase. Number two, your ICs. All buyers have to bring your ICs along. You have to bring your appointment letter as well. You have to bring the declaration form for the retrofitting of windows. And one of the most important things that you have to bring is the confirmation from the town council on the payment of the SNCC charges. So this one has to be done before the completion itself. You have to go down to either your nearest town council or HDB branch to pay for the rest of the SNCC charges, get the receipt, get them to acknowledge on the form, and you have to bring this form down to the completion appointment. Now, if you're handing over the unit on the day itself, you have to of course bring along the keys as well. And do remember to bring some cash as payment for the discharge of the mortgage on the flat. Now let's talk about temporary extension of stay. Let's say if you have already sold the unit and you have requested for a 3 months temporary extension of stay, these are the things that you need to take note of. First thing, for your next purchase, you have to have the exercise OTP of your next purchase before you do your resale application for the sale of your flat, because you have to inform HDB on your 3 months temporary extension of stay. Now, if you don't have an exercised OTP of your next purchased flat or property before the resale application date, the latest date that you need to have this is before the completion date itself. So, on or before the completion date, you need to have an exercised OTP of your next purchase, and you have to inform HDB about it so that they can help you to process this temporary extension of stay by completion date. Now, if you have a temporary extension of stay of 3 months, the handover date would be 3 months from the completion date, and you have to arrange for another final inspection with the buyer prior to handing over 3 months later. So that's it. Congratulations on successfully selling your HDB resale flat. Now, we hope that this video has helped you to understand the selling timeline a lot better. If you have any other timelines you want us to discuss and go through, leave it down in the comment section below. If you're still confused about the timeline, don't worry. Drop us a DM, give us a call, and we'll arrange a meetup so that we can go through the timeline with you in detail. Remember to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. This is Louis from LoukProp, and I'll see you in the next Real Talk video. But before that, let me open up the timeline and open up the portal to the last video, the buying timeline. Oh, watch it. It's helpful for you. Watch it. Watch it. Click here. Oh, portal closing.